I'm calling for fair use on the grounds that this proves that I was right all along. um, so I'd like to thank Ukraine today for all their very brave and very hard work. Um, and if any CIA agents are involved with that, bless you. Bless you. Because, CIA agents are people too. And anybody helping these people out, good people. Alright. So, if you're a subscriber to this channel, then you already know what this is going to be about. But since some of the new people might click this, I'm going to go ahead and explain. I've been saying for quite some time that the whole Islamic State thing is Russian. All done from Russia. It's all orchestrated by Russia. The whole thing about Saddam Hussein was just a continuation of the Cold War. That's all it ever fucking was. I think people are kind of goofy for not realizing that. Anyways, basically all these other conspiracy channels, no matter what the focus of their conspiracy is, where it's flat earth, round earth, fucking aliens, whatever, their main objective is to keep your eye off the Russians. All those news agencies, including RT itself, started when Putin took power back in the late 90s.
Revelations by a former Russian agent implicating the Kremlin's involvement in terrorist activities in Europe and the Middle East. The interview takes place far outside of Kiev. The account about to be heard bears the hallmarks of a real spy scandal, undercover operations, fake documents, and financial donations. Ukraine Today's partner news portal TSM Weekly investigated the story. Such an interview is dangerous for any FSB personnel with high-level access. The ex-spy, codenamed Yevgeny, specialized in terrorist organizations and counter-terrorism activities. The man firstly claimed that radical Islamist groups are staffed with Russian agents and that Moscow has a real impact on their activity. This is what he told terrorism activities. The man firstly claimed that radical Islamist groups are staffed with Russian agents and that Moscow has a real impact on their activity. This is what he told journalist Andrei Saplienko. The are staffed with Russian agents and that Moscow has a real impact on their activity. This
The animation
is what he told journalist Andrei Saplienko. Being guided by good intentions, human rights activists from Europe would help the people.
My
being
original
persecuted
edition
in their
selfie
country to
stick is
flee.
getting kind of
Among
tired,
them were infiltrators
so I need a
with
cigarette
documents
to help
and a
me hold
made-up
it.
legend.
Somehow
They would
that's gonna
actively
work.
infiltrate into Muslim communities with the support of the security services.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over the TV. I'll back it up. I'm gonna pause it.
With Russian agents and that Moscow has a real impact on their activity. This is what he told journalist Andrei Saplienko.
How could I resist?
Being guided by good intentions, human rights activists from Europe would help the people being persecuted in their country to flee. Among them were infiltrators with ready documents and a made-up legend. They would actively infiltrate into Muslim communities. With the support of the security services, they made financial donations, thus acquiring prestige before moving up the hierarchy. According to Yevgeny, Russian agents were a tool in attacks in Europe. Their task was to undermine the situation and create so-called multicultural conflict. According to Yevgeny, Russian agents were a tool in attacks in Europe. Their task was the hierarchy. According to Yevgeny, Russian agents were a tool in attacks in Europe. Their task was to undermine the situation and create so-called multicultural conflict. This started in. According to Yevgeny, Russian agents were a tool in attacks in Europe. Their task was to undermine the situation and create so-called multicultural conflict.
I think these people who go around saying every shooting incident is fake are chicken shits who never lived in the ghetto. Plain and simple. I mean, you're white people who are afraid to face your own fears. Alright? And the fact of the matter is, there be some crazy people out there, okay? And people get fucking shot up. Yeah, they think this is all staged. It's just silly. There's no other way to explain it. It's anarchist, anti-government, communist-sponsored propaganda that's meant to brainwash you into becoming a traitor. And you know what? It's from the same people who are providing the brainwashing that they're claiming to warn you against. You know? Those who say they are Jews and are not. It's like I've warned you about this before. Read your Bible.
This started in 2009 in London, but according to his account, was most recently seen in Paris.
Is there any proof which suggests that the Russian special services were involved in the terrorist attacks on Paris, or at least they knew about them in advance?
Given the connections they have in...
The Russian special services were involved in the terrorist attacks on Paris, or at least they knew about them in advance?
Given the connection...
Suggests that the Russian special services were involved in the terrorist attacks on Paris, or at least they knew about them in advance?
Proof multicultural conflict. This started in 2009 in London, but according to his account, was most recently seen in Paris.
Is there any proof which suggests that the Russian special services were involved in the terrorist attacks on Paris, or at least they knew about them in advance?
Given the connections they have in Muslim communities based in Europe, they could not but know that the terrorist acts were being prepared. They knew but did not share.
Is it complicity?
It is complicity in acts of terrorism, and the complicity could be direct or indirect. By analysing their connections, one, of course, will be able to see the ties leading to Russia. Primarily, Russia could benefit from this, and the Russian security services had all the possibilities to organise this.
Ain't that about a bitch?
Kremlin's influence also includes terror group Islamic State, also known as Daesh. After the split of the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization, former officers of the Iraqi army and members of the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party started creating the organization. All of them graduated from Moscow-based educational institutions.
Now, there's a lot of little funny memes going on around about now, because they're the incrementalists who are, I say, the good guys in the government and in the media, or in the news. Media to me is just a misnomer. Well, they've been showing these little memes about how this is what Al Qaeda looked like, this is what Islamic State looks like. If anybody's got one of these on their Facebook or whatever, they seen these on the scroll down here or whatever, just take a look at that for a second and think, you know, why do they got all them nice matching uniforms? Because, you know, terrorists from all over, that's not what they look like. And what you saw in Crimea, if you paid attention to what happened in Crimea, and apparently has stayed in Crimea, you'd see basically a slow succession of uniform loss. Basically, people had the same kind of gear, and they all started out with similar uniforms, and then the uniforms slowly got a little less similar as they took other people's shit, basically.
Members of the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party, also known as Daesh. After the split of the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization, former officers of the Iraqi army and members of the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party started creating the organization. All of them graduated from Moscow-based educational institutions.
Lots of them trucks, man.
Can one claim that Russia or the Russian special services are involved in the creation of ISIS?
Definitely, and I know that exactly. The Russian Special Services believe that if a terrorist organization was set up as an alternative to Al-Qaeda and it created problems for the United States, as Donbass does for Ukraine now, it would be quite good.
The former FSB officer's knowledge of how Russian agents work jointly with Islamist radicals and Donbass militants is invaluable for Ukraine. The anonymous man claimed he fled Russia for personal, not ideological reasons. Ukrainian experts have checked his statements with
That's
the use
Mr.
of a
Anonymous
polygraph
guy
twice.
right there.
The results appeared to show the story was a truthful account.
Pun, slightly intended, I'm sure.